Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the October 23rd meeting of the Finance, Taxation, and Assessment Committee to discuss the proposed budget for 2026. Council members, committee members present are Committee Member Keegan, Farrell, myself. We also have Committee Member Adams. I believe just walked out for 1 second, but he is here. Council members present, we have Council Member Zamer. Also present, we have from city staff, Brian Jimenez, Carly Johnson, and we have a few presentations for this evening. We also have Shaniqua Jackson, our city clerk. A few presentations for this evening, so we're going to go in the following order. We will first start with the Department of Recreation with their budget presentation. Then we'll go to Youth and Workforce Services, and we'll end with the Community Police Review Board presentation. As part of that, we also have a few bonds to discuss this evening. Ordinance 55-101-25, an ordinance for recreation court resurfacing, Ordinance 56-101-25, an ordinance for maintenance equipment for recreation, Ordinance 57-101-25, recreation playgrounds, and Ordinance 58-101-25, recreation spray pads. So the approach we'll take is Commissioner, we'll have you come up here to the front, do your presentation, and then we'll go over the ordinances at the same time for recreation. But before we do that, we do have one public comment for this evening. So at this time, Keith Irish, if you can join us up at the front, just state your name and city of location for the record, and then you'll have 5 minutes to go over your public comment.
You're going to use the clock?
I have a clock up here. I'll just let you know when we have 1 minute left.
Okay. Ready?
Ready.
Okay. Good evening, Common Council members that are present from the Finance Committee and other ones. My name is Keith Irish, a longtime city resident, currently in the 9th Ward. And you're going to get a rare treat out of me tonight because I am going to wing it. I have no prepared speech, but I have comments to make. First off, at Tuesday's meeting, I would like to let it be known that there was no handouts of the presentations done by the various agencies that were here on that night. I'm not going to take my time to repeat who they were. But there was no handouts. I noticed so far tonight by looking at the two bins when I picked up the agenda for tonight that I don't see any for tonight either. I don't think that's correct because there were a few from earlier one, particularly from the Treasurer's office that had them handed out. Second off, we have 3 items we want to deal with tonight. As far as the budget is concerned, the ordinances, you deal with them. Recreation. Recreation seems to be a mixed bag lately because they seem to say one thing and do something else, quite frankly. They have a lot of flyers that they seem to create and hand out, and these are only a couple of examples so I could carry them all. Yet they don't seem to promote the items very well to the people that they are geared for. One of these is geared for families, this one is geared for preteens, this one's geared for similar to preteens. They also are in charge of the senior program in the city, commonly referred to as the older loved ones. That's a schedule that comes out once a month as well. They always seem to be getting shorthanded one way or the other, and they're always getting told, can't do this, can't do that, and they claim it's budget items. I don't know if that's true, but if the city wants to have a senior program, they've got to increase the budget for that for sure. Whether it's at the new building that are going up, the old buildings that exist, it's crazy. Because just yesterday, the senior loved one program is back over to Arbor Hill after being moved over to the Palmieri Center, and now they're being told they're going to be there until the new West Hill gets opened. And West Hill has got flaws in it that you can see before it's even built. So that's something that should be addressed one way or the other, particularly at budget items. The workforce services, if I understand that correctly, that's related to hiring people and things of that nature. If they don't promote the fact that they're going to do that, then how are people going to know it enough to try to apply for the city positions to be open? The county puts out a whole bunch of stuff that I don't see the city doing. And that's something that should be addressed and looked at as well. Third item is the Community Policing Review Board. That's a big item. That one's a big one. There has been so much complaints about that from people that are related to the CPRB that the city, it wants them in the city, but they're not funding them properly. They're not giving them their just reserves. They're not getting their things that they're supposed to have in order to do their job. And this has been happening not just this last year since they became part of the city, but for years since CPRB is in existence. So that sounds to me like a budget item.
1 minute left.
Thank you. So to me, that sounds like a budget item that should be addressed in some form. The last part, of course, is that most of all these things that I mentioned as far as promotional items and such could easily be handled and taken care of by, of course, the community media channels in Albany that I will continue to promote and talk about. And I will just say that they created recently, I found, a flyer for training programs, but because of the lack of funding for Channel Albany operations, they're all during the day when nobody can attend them because they're at work. And the staff is minimal and doesn't care. That's another issue. I'm just pointing it out as budgetary. I think that will cover me for tonight for winging it. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Irish. Okay, at this time, I'll welcome Commissioner Jones up to the front.
Good evening to the Common Council and everyone present. My name is Jonathan Jones. I'm the Commissioner of Recreation, Youth, and Workforce Services. And this is my 12th budget. And so I'm very honored to be sitting here in front of you for one more time. I do want to take just a moment to respond to the previous comment about our moving of seniors. I won't take away from our topic here, but I just want to address the situation. Our seniors were moved from the Palmieri Community Room because the building is having mechanical issues. It's well known. Engineering department is working there. There's also a professional service contractor that is there to make sure it's safe for the return of not just our seniors, but all residents. And they've been moved to a space that we currently occupy, thank you to the IDA, but also where our programs are, that is near most of our constituents that participate in the program. So no one has ever been moved for any other reason other than safety, and we take that very serious. Mr. Irish is a very active member in our older loved ones, and we love seeing him. He's traveled with us to the New York State Fair, and we love seeing him. So I just wanted to put that out there for some clarity on that context. Without further ado, our mission, slide 2, please. Our mission in the Department of Recreation drives every decision we make. We provide safe spaces, inclusive programs, and community events that bring Albany together. Whether it's on a basketball court or in at a park, our work builds connections, and at the same time, our reach is always to improve the quality of life for our residents. And I'd like to introduce our Deputy Commissioner, Jessica Morgan.
Nice to see you all. Thank you. Our core functions at the Department of Recreation are quite simple, we believe, not just maintaining spaces, but by activating them for all residents. We manage more than 40 public spaces citywide, major facilities as the Christian Plumeri Sports Complex, Bleecker Stadium, to neighborhood favorites like Crank Park Playground, Pitch Pine Playground, and Buckingham Pond. Our team handles everything from splash pads to fencing to benches to signage, ensuring that every park is safe, accessible, and vibrant. We deliver year-round programming for all ages, helping toddlers discover play, teens develop confidence, and seniors stay active and connected. Expansion programs that we hope to open up next year with the opening of West and the reopening of South include Learn to Swim, more senior wellness programs, day activities. Through events and partnerships, we turn public spaces into shared spaces. Every collaboration and cleanup proves that what we already know. Albany is a team sport. We don't just maintain parks, we activate them. We don't just program, we connect and engage and empower our community. We are really proud this year of our public engagement. As you can see, our numbers are up dramatically, 30% on socials, whether it is YouTube. Last year we had in the mid 4,000 range of views. This year we're up to, we'll be seeing 7,000 by the end of the year, we hope. And our Facebook views went from 250,000 to over 1.7 million this year. So our reach and our engagement is really, really growing. That digital momentum is showing up in the real world. Programs and participation in those programs, despite Albany South being closed, has also grown 30%. Our residents aren't just following us, they're showing up and engaging with us. Looking ahead, we're focused on sustaining this growth, sharpening our storytelling, and deepening our connection with Albany residents.
So our highlights of the current year include not only some of the things that you're able to see here, but at the end of the day, we really focused on not only our young people, but our seniors. As earlier mentioned, our Older Loved Ones program has an annual event called Healthy Aging Fair. Many of you have attended this previously. And we also took a trip this year to the New York State Fair in connection with the seniors in Syracuse, New York for the first time. Our programs like the Upstate Gamers and Live Fit continue to be hits, and this year we actually included programming like barbering, braiding, and women's self-defense. This department continues to listen to our residents to provide them what they want through surveys and also through engagement on social media, and hopefully we are delivering exactly what our residents want as we move into a new phase, as we grow into new and bigger centers. So this operating budget, as you see, will include 4 additional positions. As I mentioned, we're almost doubling in size. The budget reflects efficiency and accountability. Its operating strategy balances personnel, maintenance, and our programming needs while preparing for an expansion. And every dollar that we have here is going to be dedicated to either a person or a service that has either been requested or we'll see from national trends that are picking up. So one of the biggest things that we wanted to highlight is at this budget, although it is a growth budget, you're not going to see frivolous positions that we're not ready for. This upcoming year with the new centers coming online, we're going to learn a lot about where recreation needs to go. And at the same time, in this budget, we're also expanding our partnerships to include community-based organizations we can partner with, as well as some professionals that we've seen in other areas that we want to work with. And in our 2026 goals, our focus is to grow but actually be ready for what is ahead of us. We're preparing to bring Lincoln Park Pool, Albany West, and Albany South Community Centers back online. Those are major milestones for our city and ones that, as Commissioner, I've been working on since I stepped foot in January of 2014. Also, we'll continue to host events that build belonging, especially now, expand our workforce for a better service delivery, and ensure that every park and pool is clean, safe, and active. Simply put, we're building a recreation system for the next generation, but also including our current generations to engage with each other.
So we all know that Albany is growing. We at Recreation believe that our job is to make sure that growth feels like opportunity. Every dollar we request isn't just for maintenance, it is for this momentum. Our 2026 capital investment focuses on modernization, safety, and accessibility across every neighborhood. This year alone, resurfacing the courts that we did choose rose between 160 and 700% to get done. Next year, we want to continue this drive to make sure that our courts and playable spaces are well maintained and ready for anybody, including the leagues and teams that we would like to see come into the city for their enjoyment and our revenue and moving in a multi-year improvement system. Forgive me. As these investments also lay the foundation for reopening Albany South and our new community at Albany West and launching all the new programs we have in store. This long-term smart investment keeps our facilities ready, resilient, and relevant. Recreation, we believe, isn't an experience. It's an investment in equality, equity, access, and belonging. Our 2026 capital projects include the Wilkie Playground renovation. That is the playground that's the formal name on Colony Street that is in desperate need of some love and definitely a new play space. We are preparing to look at our courts such as Colby Street, Washington Park Tennis Courts, and Cat Hoke, among others, and updating the splash pad at North Swan Street so it's not just a few pop-up jets, but it's a really exciting and engaging space for our children. 2026 isn't about what we open, it's about how we grow responsibly and sustainably, and most importantly, together as a community.
And so with that, I did want to address one error that we had in our budget, which was Swinburne revenue. Swinburne, we know that the roof is being fixed right now. We anticipate and hope that it will be open by 2026, but we are not projecting that that revenue will be made whole this year as a result of the construction. But something that is exciting is the Swinburne Master Plan. And so there is one part of Swinburne that we've already redeveloped. That is on the Clinton Ave side. On the other side of Swinburne, there is another part of the park that needs updating, but at the same time has acreage that can be more inclusive and accessible. We're starting right now with the spray pad. From there, we'll put together this master plan with many other entities around the city, including DGS, to really understand what this space can be. We've had success in the prior years of doing this, and we continue to do that. On top of that, we will continue to work with upgrading our city courts. As Justice mentioned, basketball has a line, as well as our court resurfacing. Here you're seeing a picture of Westland Hills that was just completed. Hopefully you've all seen Washington Park basketball court. That's also been completed. But in all honesty, the dollars that were appropriated in years prior do not meet today's prices. Yesterday's prices are not today's prices. And going forward in the future, a lot of our facilities really are in need of a major redevelopment, especially our fields and courts. And then lastly, everyone should know, if you don't know about Albany South and Albany West, hopefully you've seen the construction on Livingston and Hoffman Ave. And these are big projects that we're really excited about. I was able to attend the national convention and talk to many other commissioners across the country, and they are very also excited about what we're doing, but they were very happy that we included our community. And that was something that was highlighted, that community input is not only important for the future, but it's also important for buy-in. And so lastly, as we expand our reach, we also need to expand our workforce. But as I mentioned to you, this budget is conservative in its approach, and so we really understand what we're doing and what we're using our tax dollars for in respect to personnel. We saw that over this course of the summer with Lincoln Park Pool. We didn't overshoot, and we were within budget. The middle piece, though, is putting together something new in Albany. I've tried this in 2017 as well, and it's something that we're realizing is really a need to sustain our access, and that is a model that has free services for those who are in need, but some other benefits that are paid. We're seeing this across the country. We're one of the very few that everything still remains free, and so we look forward to working with the council and our committee to really help you understand and help us get to a place where some of the things that we offer would fit in buckets that would require and would generate revenue, but at the same time still offer a balance of things for our constituents that would be free. One last thing on that, I do want to count and say that we are not proposing that any of our residents would have to pay for anything other than, with respect to pools, other than lap swim. Lap swim would be before our normal hours. Residents who still enter Lincoln Park Pool or any of our pool activity sites for free, and as well as our boxing gym, that would remain free. But when we travel, when we do things that are outside of the scope of just normal recreation and include competition, those would be a membership or a fee service. Lastly, I would say that when we looked at this, we used the National Recreation and Parks model, which you're seeing here in front of you. We also spoke to several other cities, and we used local cities as comps for us to really understand, especially our pool prices, were they out of line or were they right where our residents can afford them. And I'm happy to report that we believe they are, and look forward to having a deeper discussion about that when the time is right. So with that, that concludes the Department of Recreation's presentation for the budget, and open to any questions.
Thank you, Commissioner and Deputy Commissioner. Very informative presentation, and first and foremost, thank you for everything you do for our city. A lot of recreation is what makes our city vibrant, makes our city active, and a great place to live. So thank you for everything you do. I'm going to turn to committee members for questions first. Before I do, just want to recognize Councilmember Hoey has joined us, and I'll turn to Councilmember Keegan.
Thank you, and thank you to you folks for making the time this evening to come and meet with us. We always appreciate when city staff are willing to forego dinner to come to our meetings and communicate with us. I want to start out on page 75 of the budget and just gain an understanding. I looked over your administrative staffing totals, and it seems that the staffing line items are remaining flat with a continued 9 positions. But I also noted that the allocated salary has gone up by about $150,000. So I'm just wondering where those numbers came from.
Yeah, so when you see like things of that nature in the budget, we have reduced vacancies at this point in time within the Department of Recreation. Going back, I think on about 9 positions, I believe the department was maybe half full in 2023. Does that sound about right? And slowly we've sort of gotten them up to full staff. We actually just had 1 person resign this week, so there is going to be some savings now in that area should we not fill the position immediately. But all in all, it's always a moving target with personnel and a turnover that we have.
And then also on that same page, I think we've covered sort of the issue of the Swinburne skate rental, and I believe we also previously already discussed the pool charges that are anticipated. We reduced our anticipated revenue for field and facility use by $95,000. Is that just based upon our 2025 actuals?
Yeah, that's based on actuals, and I think the department is now implementing a structured fee model that the commissioner mentioned based on public versus quote unquote private use.
Okay, and then on that same page, we are noting roughly $500,000 coming in for OCFS youth. Is that a grant that we're anticipating? Has that been allocated?
So that ties to the appropriation on page 77 inside the programs unit for youth support services. That's an initiative that has been included in 2026. We're anticipating, whether it's from OCFS or other private sources, to do sort of additional hours at the community centers in kind of an overnight basis for youth.
And that's the youth violence prevention program. We're building that into recreation, correct?
Correct.
And we're anticipating that we're going to be spending some of that capital is going to be from the city and the rest is going to be made up through grants?
Yes, correct.
Okay. I just want to make sure. And so if we're unable to obtain those funds, we have to scale down that program, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And then if we go to page 76, I just want to note that we're under recreation operations. I'm assuming the additional staffing positions are anticipated for the two facilities that we're opening this year. Is that what we're looking at? Staffing is going from 11 to 13 there?
Yeah, those are the maintenance employees associated with West Hill.
Okay. And then I'm just, again, under sort of that same heading, we go all the way down to line 7440 under contracted services. That's going up by 80,000. Do we know what that's in relation to?
Yeah, those are the contracted services associated with the pool.
Okay. And then if we go on to page 77 under recreation programs, again, we're going from 5 to 7 staffing positions. I'm assuming, again, those are planned for the expanded new facilities?
Yes, you'll see 2 additional community aides, one for Albany South and one for West Hill.
Okay. And then we're also increasing our budget for temporary help. Do we know what that's in relation to?
Those are sort of the recreation aides that we're going to need additional staffing.
Okay. And we're also increasing the budget for equipment there by, I don't know, roughly $45,000.
Yes, so we received a SAM grant from Assemblywoman Romero for some of the furniture and other fixtures that are needed at West Hill, but there's still going to be some pieces that we're going to have to fund ourselves.
So, like your standard exercise equipment, all of that fun stuff that would go into that project, okay? And that's not included in the bond, I'm assuming we're purchasing separately?
No, we received $300,000 from Assemblywoman Romero, as I mentioned, and there's a few things that Albany South may need as well. I believe we saved most of that equipment and they'll be moved back in, but we do have additional square feet that will need to be addressed at that point in time.
Okay. And again, the $500,000 for youth support services, that's in addition to the $500,000 in the other category, or are we just noting that twice in the budget?
Well, that's the $500,000 expense that ties to the $500,000 grant revenue.
So we're planning on building out that program at roughly 1 million?
No, at 500,000.
Okay, so it's,
It's a 1-for-1.
okay. I just want to make sure I'm understanding what I'm reading in here. And then if we go on to page 78, I notice under the summer youth employment program, we're reducing that category of summer help by 324,000 roughly. Do we know why that?
Yeah, I mean, we've been appropriating about $1 million a year each year for the city-funded summer youth employment program. And coming out of COVID, I think there was a hope that we'd see higher caseloads than have happened. We've never exceeded $500,000 in wages for the youth in that program. I think so this is more just right-sizing the budget. You will see increases over on the youth and workforce budget for the same item. I think overall enrollment has grown pretty substantially over the past 3 years, but we're seeing a larger and larger percentage of the kids in the program being TANF eligible. So the county funds them through the Youth and Workforce Fund.
Okay. And then, I guess we can sort of wait for the bonds, but I know that this has come up and I didn't see it in the project proposal. There have been community pushes for Bleecker. itself, Bleecker Stadium. Do we know if we have a long-term plan? Have we started looking into upgrades to that side of the park?
So, yeah, we started last year with Bleecker Stadium concession stand. So there are new concession stands there. Internally, we're working on a PA system. After that, we want to move with Swinburne first. We need to get Swinburne, the ice rink in that park online. That is not only a major winter activity location, but is also a high-use park. And then we will move back to Bleecker Stadium to work on that. But fortunately, we have the Poe Mary Sports Complex, and now we've done some work at Ridgefield Park, and so some of our soccer players and some of our baseball teams and softball teams can use those other facilities that were offline in prior years, and then we'll work our way back to Bleecker Stadium.
Okay, thank you. Those are all my questions.
Additional questions from committee members? Can you go, one question for me, can you go over the proposed pay scale for the pool, Lincoln Park pool, and how that would be for out-of-state residents / lap swim?
Sure. So pool admission for all residents are free. Season passes are free. For lap swim, adults would pay $5. Youth would pay $3, and seniors would pay $3. Swim lessons would still remain free for Albany residents. And for our non-residents, pool admission would be between $5 and $10 based on age. Season passes would be between $50 and $100. And then lap swim would be $10 for all lap swimmers. And swim lessons would be $25 for young people who are non-resident and $50 for non-residents who are adults. When compared to our regional comps, Colony, for example, Colony residents pay $7. Residents pay $7. Non-residents pay $14. And they have to get passes on their own. Troy is still working out a lot of their things, but I know non-residents pay between $2 and $4. And Schenectady is working on their pools, so we don't have data from that. That's locally. But when you look across your larger centers, your Syracuses, your Rochesters, and New York State, we would still be, Syracuse residents have to pay to go to the pool. We would still be free for those residents, and they don't have the pools that we just created. And so I feel that that's not only fair, but at the same time, this is an opportunity where we've already heard, or I have heard personally, from some businesses who were so impressed with the way that their summer went. If we are going to a fee structure, that might be an opportunity for sponsorship for some of our residents who want to swim the laps, particularly our older youth, through silver sneakers or other opportunities and provisions provided to them.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for that. And in regards to the sustainable access model you talked about, I know you said, further discussion, working with the council, working that out, and you mentioned competitive sports to be part of the user pay model. Are there other situations you're considering in terms of where we would have folks pay to use our services?
So other than our boxing program, and again, not our boxing gym access, our boxing club. So those are fighters who have committed to fighting either in the region, outside of the region. Sometimes they fly different places. That would carry a monthly membership. For residents, we're anticipating $45, and for non-residents, it would double that. We do have a lot of residents who are in our boxing club, and we've highlighted them several times. But the cost of the show, the cost of the books, the cost of the wraps and the gloves are really starting to increase and hit our budget where we believe a lot of these individuals could pay the $45 for sure.
Would there be any, as it relates to those that are boxing, going the professional route, or looking to go, would there be any form of relief for very low income that are trying to, expand their boxing skills, use the monthly service? Anything, any considerations there?
No, there's definitely considerations, right, for income. I mean, luckily, the TANF model that we use for summer youth employment is giving us a 200% poverty threshold that we can look at as an understanding of how to make that happen from a recreation side. Mm-hmm. But I will be very frank that there is no one who offers what we offer in our boxing gym. And even up the street, I'm calling them out, but Shots Gym, you have to pay a lot of money. And maybe this is competition because we have a fight coming up. We haven't lost to them in a long time. So we're providing champions and we're providing the equipment, hopefully for them to be successful. And we hope that they will just meet us at this nominal fee just to make it even. This is not to necessarily break in revenue from our residents. This is to recover some of the costs that we're putting out for having a program.
Absolutely. Okay, thank you. Councilmember Keegan?
Just a couple of follow-up questions. Sort of back to the pools. Our Albany West, is that indoor or outdoor pool
That's
plan?
an outdoor pool.
Okay. Are we going to continue to partner with the school district for indoor swimming?
I hope so. You know, when we leave that building, that actually ends our lease agreement, and so we would need to get back to the table to talk about that. In years prior, we've used Myers, we've used Albany High, and the school district has been a great partner with that, and so I hope that we can continue that relationship. We're actually going to start something. Can I say it? All right, we're actually going to start swim lessons in November, December because of such a need from our parents that we've heard from, and so yeah, we plan to continue that relationship. And we'll have to get back to the table with them once we leave, though.
I just want to emphasize that that's been a huge, well, not a huge concern, but certainly a concern that's come to us through public comment is the lack of access to indoor swimming. And I know that we rely very heavily on the school district for that partnership, so I would strongly encourage that we figure out a way to, and I know at some point people were paying $1 or $2 per swim to be able to use those spaces, at least before the pandemic. So I don't know where we're at with all of that, but I would encourage us to continue to have a relationship where those facilities are available to our residents. That, of course, dramatically increased when the JCC's pool was closed. So we do want to figure out a way to continue to make that happen. And then this is more of a suggestion, but as we move to a fee-for-service program, you talked about sponsorships, but, you know, as the mayor has set up sort of charitable donation contributions to the city, I would encourage us to kind of figure out a way to bring in or allow citizens to donate to offset costs for our lower income residents so that they can still have the ability to participate without having to come up with the funds, particularly considering the poverty rate that we have in the city and the goal of those programs really to engage our young adults and keep them off the streets. I don't want to end up in a space where those community safe spaces and those nonviolent spaces are becoming cost prohibitive to certain portions of the population. And that's all I had to say. I think Councilmember Adams had his hand up.
Sorry, I didn't hear what you said there. Councilmember Adams and Councilmember Farrell.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner, everyone being here this evening. Just have a few questions for clarification, just to understand how some of the functions are working in your department. When it comes to the basketball courts, do you have like a audit that you do on the courts to kind of check off, like in terms of the maintenance conditions of the courts, to know or when to prioritize which courts?
So currently, our court staff visits every court within a 10-day cycle period, and we record spider web cracking, it's called, or cracking on the courts, and we do have a rating system that we generally use to know which courts are in the worst condition. This year, the feedback we got from the people who came in to look at the courts to refurbish them really indicated to us that we need to start thinking about a full-scale renovation, tear-up, and complete redo of a lot of them. So that's weighing heavily on us moving forward.
Thank you. That kind of goes into my next question with one of the ordinance here for the resurfacing of the courts. within your contract, or how does it work in terms of, do they resurface and redo the course just once? Or is that, you know, if 5-7 years from now, the courts need to be resurfaced again, is that included under this contract? Or do we have to continue to pay again to resurface these parks?
So the current bid that's out, or excuse me, the current RFQ that's out basically is asking for those people to come in and resurface them now, so they're playable for 3 to 5 years. That's about the lifespan of these repairs that we're making. So we do need to look a little bit further long-term in the future to do a more permanent repair. But again, we're working that out financially and to figure out how we can make that happen.
I'm thankful for that response, because one of the concerns here is that we are now taking out bonds to pay for things that is going to have a short lifespan, especially when it comes to the parks and playgrounds there. So, you know, if we decide to pass this ordinance, we're essentially paying, you know, 15 years for a 3 to 5 year product. And at that time, or if we do that, then again, it's just furthering the debt burden that we're continuing to go down the road. And so for me, that's a concern right now with the amount of bonds and different parks and improvements that we're trying to make. So I'm very interested to know really what is the, as you mentioned, you're still working on that, but as you figure that out, what the long-term solution is to this, because right now this doesn't seem like it's going to be a beneficial to us long-term. Thank you. Actually, I have a few more questions. The other concern is the Lincoln Park pool, which just opened, love it. Has there been any consideration to any adjustments to the summer hours to, again, allow residents to come in earlier, or for revenue purposes, honestly?
Yes, we're considering hours longer. Well, we did hear a lot of feedback from the public this year that it wasn't an adequate time in the evening for parents to get out, get their kids, and get to the pool for some later evening enjoyment. So we're looking at expanding those hours, especially you know, the hotter days, the warmer times, and the longer sunlight hours. So that is something we're absolutely exploring.
Oh, yeah, my questions. Thank you.
For the record, we are also joined by Committee Member Ballerin and Council Member Farrell.
Thank you so much. And first and foremost, thank you all for everything that you do. And I will say the boxing program is not just incredibly a great deal, it's also known as one of the best boxing programs in the area. Like it is truly miraculous that we have this offering. And I also know that the coaches are so entwined with a lot of the people that use it. I feel pretty confident if there are any kids that are unable to pay any of it, that they would know them well enough to help support them. But it's certainly, I appreciate that ask, because I also know that there's a lot of it's an opportunity that a lot of kids wouldn't have otherwise, because normally you have to pay for it. So it's certainly something that we would love to continue to support in any way we can. I was just curious if you could talk a little bit more about the youth hub, there's a bit of discussion of it, and also that some of it would be grant funded, and if you had any details or thoughts on it, that would be.
I don't have much details, but what I do know is that there is a great desire by our community to have a space where young people after non-traditional hours can find the supports they need. And so I know this is exploratory at this time, and as Gideon said, hopefully it would all be a one-for-one grant funded. So I look forward in the coming weeks and days to learn more about it, but I do know that this is community driven from many neighborhoods and sessions that I've had with our young people and through the Department of Youth. And so that's really all I have at the moment. So
there hasn't been like any planning pieces to it yet. And I will say, obviously our budget timeline is what it is, and then it's grant timelines are different. It's not something that one would necessarily have a plan yet. Like,
No.
just because our timeline is this, it doesn't mean it's going to coincide. But I was just curious because it is something that I know my constituents have asked about,
Yeah.
and I was curious if there had been any planning or anything like
No,
that.
no concrete plans at this point, just exploratory.
All right, thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Zamer, then Councilmember Hoey.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Commissioner and Deputy Commissioner, for being here. Just, I think a quick question. So summer camp, you offer 5 weeks, and the summer is like 8 or 9. I think it's closer to 9 weeks. Have there been, and is it mostly, summer camp is offered in the month of July, and the month of August, there's not really camps offered? So is there, has there been conversation about extending the weeks, or is that something that, is that maybe a goal?
It is a goal. I forgot to mention summer activities as well. We offer summer activities, not camps, only because OCFS regulation around camps are a little different than what we provide. And that is also another piece that we're going to look to work with you on in the coming months and weeks about how to do that better. The reality is many of our staff are either school district employees or college students. And when they have to go back to school, it kind of lines up with the summer youth employment program, and I know you know this as well with my guy Max. It lines up, when they have to go back to school, that's usually when our summer camp ends. On top of that, we have a growing number of young people who are in our charter schools. And our charter schools have typically started school earlier than our public school children. And so we would lose a significant amount of our young people if we were to go too far. But we're not stopping youth engagement activities. So whether that be back to school events that we had at Swinburne this year, or if we're doing some of our pilot programs like Play Streets and other areas, we're still servicing our young people. It's just not the same daytime activities and the sports clinics that we offer during those 5-week period.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you, Commissioner, Assistant Commissioner, and Budget Director. I got to jump in and tell you, I am so proud of the Summer Youth Employment Program. My son went through it, and every council member, I hope, if you have children, you push them to go through it because he learned so much. And you impressed him. And I embarrassed you last year, so I won't give specifics, but I think having somebody like you get in front of kids and say, you know, this is what your future can be like is super important. And you know, I hope that you can continue to do that. I was going to suggest, you should talk about some of the graduates. And I got here late, and I just went through the presentation, and you did that.
Yes, sir.
So I think that's important because we should be growing our workforce. And we want people that go through it and go to school here in Albany to stay in Albany and to work, because we do have shortages, and this is a perfect opportunity to, for our children to learn more and become part of our society and our great city. I got a question. Do you have anything to do with the golf course, or is that?
No, sir.
Okay.
Not the golf course. In terms of programming it, obviously the pickleball court is there, and we manage that space. But we work with DGS on the golf course, but it's not a managed facility by Recreation.
Okay, because, you know, some of the stuff, this has come up over the years, people talking to me that we're not doing enough to encourage our kids to play golf. I mean, and golf it's a big sport. You know, there's college scholarships, there's opportunities. So I definitely would like to see it.
If I can, I want to just stop you for just 1 second.
Sure.
This year, actually, we had a golf clinic for 2 weeks at the golf course. And shout out to Anne-Marie, hopefully you're watching and giving you a shout out. She was very intentional about making sure that our participants were from all areas of the city and not just from certain areas. And so as a golfer, I thanked her for that, but I want to publicly acknowledge that our golf instructor saw a need for more young people to be in the game. Obviously, we know it grows networks, but it's also a game that can be taught about life, right? Next hole, next idea. So thank you.
Yeah, and I mean, a lot of business takes place on golf courses.
That's
I
right.
know it. I mean, to me, it's important, and it's important, the statement you made, It's for all the city. It's
Yes,
not
sir.
just the people who live in the 8th Ward
Yes, sir.
that golf course is located. This is a citywide golf course.
Mm-hmm.
And we know there's, one of the things I'd like to see, and again, I'm just throwing this out there for future planning maybe, we should be pushing cross-country skiing. It's healthy. I mean, that's a perfect space for it. It might be a revenue source that we, you know, like in Swinburne, we rent out skates. We should be renting out cross-country skis and getting people that way. I'd also like to see a charge for people walking the dog, because a lot of people don't pick up after their dogs, and I think there should be some kind of way we register people, if you are going to use the golf course, that there's a slight fee. We're not trying to, you know, gouge people, but we know that to maintain spaces like that, there needs to be revenue, and that's one of the things that we're dealing with. Before I forget, I want to thank you and Jessica for the splash pad I forgot the name.
Luanello Sunset.
Luanello
Eagle
Park.
Point, yeah.
Yeah, we also call it Sunset
That's
Park.
right. That's right.
But wow, I know you made Vince Raguso, the Neighborhood Association president, that he's been bugging you for years.
Yes, sir.
And this was really good. And we did have some burps, and it was, I spent a pleasant afternoon with Jessica there, and I encourage all council members, we should be reaching out and talking to you about our wards, what we see in the parks and stuff. We talked for, what, 2.5 hours, and we went over stuff. We talked about the basketball resurfacing. We have a problem at that park with the drain being too small, and if we do resurface it, we need to put a bigger drain in. So that's, you know, thank you for doing that and maintaining it. I'd like to say, though, I don't remember the last time that was resurfaced. I've lived there 35 years. I don't know, but I guess it depends on the use, is how often you have to resurface
That's
it.
correct, yeah. It's coming. We put it in this budget, so vote yes.
So the last thing I want to talk about, and Palmieri Field and the park, Torino Park, really need. I'm worried about Palmieri Field because my son plays soccer, and we were over there, and I'm starting to see, and it's not your responsibility, but like fences bent and broke and screws missing. So I want to stay on top of that. But since I've started 8 years ago, I've been pushing that we need better soccer facilities. And, you know, I know Common Council President Coriolis was saying, well, that used to be a dump. We really need to find some other location. And a group of us did go to the golf course and look, and I know they have over 200 acres, but we did have a big pushback from the folks in the 8th Ward, I'm going to be honest, that not in their backyard, they don't want to see any type of, you know, place like that. But we see in other towns like Guilderland, Colony, they do soccer tournaments. It brings people in. Soccer is an up-and-coming sport. I know there's a lot of controversy about the soccer stadium, but I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about our kids, you know, learning, having a place that's safe. You know, my son played over on the Frisbee Avenue Torino Fields, and there was metal sticking out of the ground, bricks. I was coaching one year, and the coach from Bethlehem would not let his team play. He said, this field is disgraceful, and they canceled the game. And that was embarrassing. But I just want to throw that out there. And I don't want to take too much time because we have another group in, but all I got to say is thank you. I think you're doing a great job, and whatever we can do to help, I'd like to find out ways to get more revenue. There is one tiny more little thing. I'm working with Council Member Robinson and Auditor Dorsey Applers on the Youth Safety Hub. And I know the mayor has allocated a certain amount of money to do like kind of a pilot program. It'd be great, with the summer youth employment, could we somehow turn that into all-year employment, where kids after school, if they're old enough, of course, we find a place for them to be part of the city, you know, working part of the city. I know that's a big bite, but maybe that would be a way we can get kids off the street.
No, I'm glad you mentioned that, and I don't want to steal thunder from the next presentation, but in 2021, Mayor Sheehan was one of the first people to start a year-round employment program. And so right now, we have 64 young people working right now, including at the state service, in state service. And so young people, when you go to the museum, those are your constituents that you're looking at through that program. And so, yes, we are doing year-round employment. I would love to make it bigger. Right now, it's 10 if only, but we are doing that.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Ballerin, and then we'll go into the bonds that we have.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Commissioner, Deputy Commissioner. Thank you for taking your time. I want to apologize that I missed the presentation. I had a work commitment that kept me from being here a little earlier. But I would like to ask, I'm glad to see the Swinburne Master Plan and the splash pads. Is there any information that you may have already gone over, but is there any information I can share with my neighbors of what they should be expecting?
Right now, the plan is in development. We do know that we're looking to fix any issues with the skating rink, but other than that, right now it's kind of up in the air, and we're developing those plans.
Okay, so so this year's going to be focused on developing the plans. Will there be an opportunity for neighborhood input?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you, and good to see you, Commissioner Jones.
I'd like to see you as well.
Okay, Councilmember Adams actually has something else, and then we'll go to bonds. Sure. Okay, so let's transition to the bonds that we have here. First, we're going to start with 55-101-25. This is an ordinance authorizing certain purchases by the City of Albany, New York, at a maximum estimated cost of $135,000, and authorizing the lease financing or the issuance of 135,000 serial bonds of said city to pay the cost thereof. Recreation court resurfacing. I'll turn to our budget director to give us a overall view of this particular bond and any information you have.
Yeah, I mean, these bonds really just coincide with the capital plan that, we presented this evening. 135,000 for the court resurfacing. Is that supposed to be Colby? Yeah, so that's what we're looking at for new courts, or court, capital repairs or maintenance for 2026.
Thank you. Questions on this bond? Councilmember Adams.
Thank you. I had a question in regards to the language that was in the ordinance. It said that the tax shall be annually levied on all taxable real property. Can you provide an explanation of what that means and what that means for the city?
So that's really just a pledge of our general obligation debt of the city that the council, you are promising to continue to levy taxes in a manner that can service this debt.
So would that imply that taxes would have to increase in order to do that?
No.
So is there any financial concern here in terms of supporting these bonds or passing these bonds that we're not aware of or that you would like to explain further?
No, I mean, that language is standard in every single bond authorization legislation throughout the state. That language is required by state statute.
So, so just in your opinion, based off the work that you're doing with the budget, approving these bonds right now would put us in what position financially as a city?
Well, of course, issuing debt comes with paying the debt service back at a later date. As far as the financial position, I think our capital program and debt position is where it should be, and these projects are necessary to provide maintain our assets, or else it's going to be even more expensive if we wait on repairs for years and years and allow facilities to deteriorate.
Right. I understand. Again, just as I've been looking into this budget, just becoming more concerned with the long-term spending and borrowing that we're doing for some of these capital projects. And, you are the person that is handling the budget each year. So from your professional point of view, just wanting to get an understanding if you think this is a smart thing for us to be doing at this time, if these projects are a necessity, or if there's certain ordinances here that we can wait and hold off on, just to make sure that, again, we're focusing on not taking on too much burden or money that we don't have.
I mean, all of the projects associated with rec here are fairly small and really aren't going to likely move the needle on the amount of debt service owed in a material sense. I mean, the entirety of all these ordinances is $685,000. So you'd probably be looking at total debt service if we were to borrow it all at once, which again is unlikely. These things usually come on in phases. You'd be looking at a $65,000 expense maybe 3 years from now or 4 years from now, at which point we do have debt retiring. So, the goal is to sort of keep your debt service level at a reasonable amount and not allow, it to exceed more than what you're looking for as a proportion of the budget.
All right, and also, can you speak to the, no, that's a different ordinance, I'll wait. I'm done. Thank you. Thank you for your responses.
Councilmember Ballerin.
Thank you, Chair. Can we get a list of the courts? I think I heard one that I like that will be benefiting from these resources.
Absolutely, I can send a list to the council tomorrow.
Okay, thank you. I'll say this, I know we're facing some difficult times, and I've said this for the last few years, that 2026 and beyond, I was not looking forward to, because we are all aware that at that point our federal ARPA funds were gone, and we have a closure of our landfill that we're facing. So I definitely 100% in agreement that we need to do what we need to do, and we're gonna have some difficult choices ahead of us. This is one department that I always felt has always been underfunded and has always maximized what they have. So I feel comfortable with moving this forward specifically because it's going to help our parks, and that's really, the one place that many of our kids get to go and enjoy themselves, get to have some recreational time, and get to be kids. So I appreciate the work that's been done. I know in Colby Park, my son loves going there and playing there every weekend. So I know a lot of us, may not always experience that, but when you do, and you see the other kids that are out there experiencing it, it re-emphasizes why these investments that we do are so important. So just wanted to make that in the record. Thank you.
Okay. If no further comments on this particular ordinance, can I get a motion? We have another question from Councilmember Adams.
So the object of this purpose of this ordinance is for resurfacing the basketball, tennis, pickleball courts citywide. So just to make sure that's every court.
It is not every court. We chose, I believe it was the top 9 most needed parks, and the courts within those.
Okay.
Okay. With that, I'll hand over to Councilmember Farrell.
Thank you so much. And just a quick note, a reminder to everybody that we have to, the more specific we have our bonding language, the less flexibility we have in spending it. So one of the reasons why they have a more general thing like that is if it turns out the top 9 courts are a lot cheaper than expected, then they can move to like 10, 11, 12. And if we were overly specific, we would be unable to do that and would have to go through a whole process. So the language in our bonds allows flexibility, so we're able to use that for other places, should we be able to. So I move that we move ordinance 55-10125 through the committee with a positive recommendation.
We have a motion from Councilmember Farrell to move out of committee with a positive recommendation. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Councilmember Ballerin. All those in favor? Aye. Any nays? Okay. Ordinance, any abstentions? Yeah, okay. Ordinance 55-10125 moves out of committee with a positive recommendation. All of these bonds will be held until we actually vote on the budget, but this will move forward and be held until we go through that process. All right, let's move to ordinance 56-10125. This is an ordinance authorizing certain purchases by the City of Albany, New York at a maximum estimated cost of $100,000 and authorizing the lease financing or the issuance of 100,000 serial bonds of said city to pay the costs thereof, recreation, maintenance, equipment.
Yeah, again, just, whatever sort of parks needs to maintain, mostly, the new Palmieri Sports Complex and other fields and facilities. These things include, the large-scale mowers and backhoes and whatever else, bobcats, those types of things.
Councilmember Keegan.
I just have a sort of odd question about this. So when we authorized the Department of Engineering, all the facilities management stuff was supposed to go supposed to go under them, but when I'm looking at recreation's budget, it seems that some of those functions are still housed under recreation. Do we know?
Well, engineering is handling building maintenance per se, but they're not handling outdoor site work the way that both DGS and REC are handling outdoor site work.
Okay.
Councilmember Farrell.
I just want to, I will definitely be supporting this, but I will say usually we do get a more specific idea of what the bonds are for. So if it's possible in the future that we can do that, because it's, as we're voting on money that we're borrowing, the stuff for parks thing is not, it would just be nice to have more specifics. So, thank you.
Any further questions? Councilmember Adams.
Yeah, so because it's not necessarily specified here in terms of the type of equipment, just curious as to if there's an inventory also on the equipment that you currently exist and the conditions that those are in to know what you need in addition.
So the current inventory is actually housed at DGS with their small maintenance department. Yes, they have years on everything, hours on all of our machines, and they know when something has hit its lifespan and when it needs to be cycled out.
And would these be specific for the Department of Recreation only?
Yes.
All right. Thank you.
Anything additional? Before I entertain a motion, is there an interest to hold on this until we receive the inventory list? Okay. Looks like there's a interest to hold, so we are going to hold on passing this one out. If we can get that inventory list, see the useful life, see what will be replaced, as we do with typical Department of General Services machinery, that would be much appreciated. And we'll take this ordinance up at a later time. Moving forward, we have ordinance 57-10125, an ordinance authorizing certain purchases by the City of Albany, New York at a maximum estimated cost of $250,000 and authorizing the lease financing or the issuance of 250,000 serial bonds of said city to pay the cost thereof, recreation playgrounds. Based on your presentation, I know that Wilkie Playground is looking to be a prospect for the year. Is this solely for the cost of that playground or any additional information to share?
We're looking to do both the Wilkie Street Playground and, sorry, I had it written down, and of course I've forgotten it. The second side of Swinburne, the second street side of Swinburne is an older playground that needs to be done. We're also crossing our fingers if we can get those both done. We can also do something for Upper Lincoln as well.
Questions from council members? Councilmember Keegan.
So I'm going to come back to my age-old question about the playground equipment. I issued, I think in 2023, a memo about the design specs for playground equipment. Do we know if the department is pursuing, following those guidance to have ramped access equipment and wheelchair accessible equipment installed on those playgrounds?
We are, and I believe, and the commissioner can weigh in on this, every playground that we've done since he's taken over has had ramped play spaces, and we're actively making sure that they are inclusive spaces.
Yeah, that's correct. The area where we need to really improve is the pathways to get to those ramps. Take, for example, Woodlawn, and we worked with DGS to get that. That's an area where across citywide, we have to make more accessible.
Okay. And we're happy to announce that the Commission on Disabilities legislation did pass on Monday. So hopefully in the next several months, you will have a group of folks along the spectrum of disability to be able to consult with on some of those design spec plans so that you're able to have some better feedback on where you're at in that process, if that makes any sense to you. So.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you for including us early on in that formation. Thank you.
Additional questions? Okay. Councilmember Farrell.
I move that we move ordinance 57-10125 through the committee with a positive recommendation.
We have a positive recommendation from Councilmember Farrell to move forward. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Councilmember Ballerin. All those in favor? Aye. Ordinance 57-10125 moves out of committee with a positive recommendation. Okay, I think we're on our last one for recreation, then we're getting to youth and workforce and CPRB. All right. Ordinance 58-10125. This is an ordinance authorizing certain purchases by the City of Albany, New York at a maximum estimated cost of $200,000 and authorizing the lease financing or the issuance of 200,000 serial bonds of said city to pay the cost thereof, recreation spray pads. We have a note that you're updating North Swan Street with a splash pad there for the year. Any additional information to share on this ordinance?
Only that the North Swan Street pad, I believe, was developed by a different department. It's wonderful. It's a couple of pop-up jets. We really want to make it much more user-friendly, many more features, and then we want to be able to close it down in the winter properly with proper winterization and a insulated box for the manifolds and the interior pieces of it.
Okay. Questions from council members? Okay. Is there a motion? Councilmember Keegan.
I make a motion to move ordinance 58-10125 out of committee with a positive recommendation.
We have a positive recommendation from Councilmember Keegan. Is there a second? Second from Councilmember Farrell. All those in favor? Aye. Ordinance 58-10125 moves out of committee with a positive recommendation. Thank you for your time this evening, Deputy Commissioner. I assume you are staying,
Just for a bit.
Jones?
Just for a bit.
Yes, okay. All right, so we're going to transition to the Department of Youth and Workforce at this time.
If we have extra folks, you're welcome to sit at our desk so you have access to a mic and you don't have to keep sharing it and you have a chair.
Here. No, I'm gonna get up. I'll get up and start that. Okay, good evening, everyone. Again, my name is Jonathan Jones, Commissioner of Recreation, Youth, and Workforce Services. I'm joined here by two of the world's best, our Deputy Commissioner, Raphael Tucker, and our Director of Enrollee Services, Liz Harris, Ms. Liz Harris. I just want to start briefly and tell you a little bit about this department and give you a little federal update. I think it's important to start there. But one, I would be remiss if I didn't use the opportunity to honor the life of youth employee of Youth and Workforce Services, Wayne Pombrio, that we lost far too soon. Wayne was in charge of our IT and our technology, and he passed away earlier this fall. So I just want to acknowledge to him and Wayne, thank you very much for all of your service. As we all know, the government is currently in a federal shutdown. Our funds are mostly federal, almost all federal, and at this point we're funded through the calendar year, but we do not know as of yet what will happen outside of that calendar year. It is anticipated that the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act, in which our department works under, is set for a reauthorization, but at this point it seems that that is not likely. And so we're working not only with the folks that are a part of our city and our WIB board on Washington and what they're doing in Washington, but I just wanted to affirm to everyone here that we will remain open. We will continue to offer services that you're going to hear shortly from my colleagues, but at this point the government is shut down, but we are still open. And without further ado, I want to pass it along to our Deputy Commissioner and Director. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Jones, and good evening, Common Council members. So the next slide will show our core functions. We are proud of our oops. Okay. We are proud of our comprehensive delivery system. We service youth and adults, anyone age 14 up to 80 plus, with the different programs, our different offices, 175 Central Avenue and 382 Central Avenue. We provide a career pathway building opportunity for those who come through our doors, seeking assistance to help them move from where they are now to where they want to go. We do career planning with them, with our OJT opportunities, as well as with our ITAs. We partner with local businesses to help find employees who are job seekers, but also those who are currently working for the company to enhance their skills for a higher paying position through our OJT contract process. We also provide ITAs, individualized tuition assistance programs. Those are individuals who want to increase their skill sets by enrolling and completing a skill-based training program, which is recognized by local businesses with either a training provider, local college, or entity, and we provide financial assistance with that, as well as wraparound services, which could include fees, tuition, supplies, etc. Physical exams, for example, if they need to find that for employment. All of our programs, we do encourage and include financial literacy, wealth building, and investment. That is so important for all of our participants, again, age 14 up to age plus. Roadmap development for those who are looking for, again, skill set building, because we know as you increase your skill sets, will also increase your opportunity for employment and salaries. And lastly, personal goals. We combine personal goals with career aspirations, making sure that they see the potential in themselves as they select realistic opportunities and goals to help them achieve them. Our organizational chart, which I will get to right there. Our organizational chart is a coordinated team building opportunity coming from the mayor's office to Commissioner Jones with myself and Ms. Harris, which shows the different arms of all of our services we offer to residents of the city of Albany. And again, it's anything based upon funding streams with our training staff, our senior employment training splash, our employment training specialist, reentry, MBSK, which is our Opportunity Youth Program, our veterans, our OJT population, our Summer Youth Employment Opportunity Program with the Light Year, which is the summer, which is co-funded by TANF, and then we also have the Year Light Opportunity Program for TANF eligible individuals. I will now turn it over to Ms. Harris.
Thank you.
Okay.
The other way.
Some of them changed.
There you
Here we go.
Right here. Good evening. It's a pleasure to be in your presence
Can
today.
you just move the mic a little, if you just position the mic a little closer, that'd be
Yes.
thank
It's
you.
a yes.
Yep.
It's a pleasure to be in your presence today. We're really honored to talk about the great work not only we do, but our staff, to really talk about how we impact families, individuals' families, from youth to people over 65, be it residents as old as 80 years old, utilizing our services on a daily basis. So behind these numbers, you will learn that we are really changing the model and leading with our hearts, because right now we need a lot of compassion. So as you see, there is just so you know, there is a correction. We should have put, we had 717 walk-ins. So we'll make that change. And I just wanted to step back. One of the things that we're seeing an increase in with our outbound referrals is that we're getting a lot of referrals for homelessness, affordable housing, food insecurities, and that could include families as well as elderly populations. A lot of elderly people are trying to get back into the workforce, so we are working with senior agencies to find suitable training and employment opportunities with them. So I'll turn it back over to you, please.
As you see in front of you, this is our Summer Youth Employment Program data. So over the course of the years post-COVID, our numbers have increased in all categories, going from week 1 to the end of our program. We are proud of this year's accomplishments with our retention of young people being engaged throughout the entire registration process, as well as staying engaged till completion of our program. At the bottom, you will see, again, our partnership with TANF, with the state. So this is our second year offering year-round work experience for young people. We've had 66 individuals registered and 64 persons completed orientation and have started placement at the job starting this week. This funding is available to us from September going out till June 2026.
Slides 6 and 7 will highlight some of our success stories. We'll start with Mr. Travers. And we just want to highlight that success is not a linear process. Many of our applicants that we work with us for over 2 to 3 years in terms of growing and raising their career potential as well as their personal empowerment growth. So we're really proud of Mr. Travis. He went from a 300-hour electrical training program, overcame many obstacles, including he was a former reentry applicant. He has some other challenges, including that he was homeless at one point, but through the supportive services he received through our staff, he was able to be persistent, be motivated, and as a result, he went from working as a weatherization installer with ACAP into his present-day position, which he just actually got permanently appointed to in June as National Grid, and that was his dream job. So we are very, very proud of this gentleman. And our next applicant, Mr. Michael Moscardo, he is one of our opportunity youth or enrolled in our MBSK program. His goal was to become or to obtain a position as a medical imaging care associate. He worked with our staff, secured the position. He is now pursuing his education at Hudson Valley Community College, and you'll see there he's very proud of his new scrubs. So we're very proud of the impact that we're making and investing in our youth.
This next slide will show our collaboration efforts. We are a part of the National Youth Employment Coalition. We are one of 7 cities throughout the country, to include Tampa, Florida, Buffalo, New York, and Seattle, Washington. We are the lead agency whereby this slide will showcase. We hosted an in-person strategic meeting here at the Renaissance where the partners from New York City came in, and we had a comprehensive conversation with young people, community partners, service providers, to develop and to become aware of the strengths we do have in the city of Albany in terms of services for our youth, to hear from our youth to find out what needs need to be met by them in service deliveries, and to collaborate to how make sure those needs are being met by the existing programs and services, and those that are not, how we can partner to develop to miss those gaps.
Some of our highlights that we want to put the STAR location on today is that we were hosted over 600 young adults in the City of Albany residents in the Summer Youth Employment Program. We distributed $125,000 to community partners to provide contracted programming for both in-school and out-of-school youth in our community. Agencies that were funded were SEED, Learn, Tech, Teach, and additional highlights, partnered with Healthy Alliance, which is an electronic-based referral systems, where we expanded our capacity to refer for mental health referrals and increase our connections to community partners to address homelessness. One of the greatest accomplishments that we had this year was that we increased our OJT, which is on-the-job training program. We were creating a pipeline of entry-level trainees to get into positions where it's the learn and earn model. So these individuals are able to compete for competitive positions. They're earning a competitive rate. And through this program and our partnership, we have maintained a 100% retention rate, working with our supportive services and case managers.
Our operating budget will show that we are increasing one position in our department. We realize as we invest in our staff and our community, there is a need to have a staff person as for customers or students when they walk through the door at 175 Central Avenue, to be knowledgeable enough of all of our services and programs citywide and in our department, and triage that course of service delivery systems to match their needs to what we can offer them. We need to hire an individual with that skill set. Visions for expansion, as we mentioned earlier, OJT, reaching out to businesses to connect job seekers to employers will be one of our goals to enhance, but also our department job fair, working with HR department in the City of Albany with our weekly workshops with civil service, letting people know how to apply for positions in the civil service system, as well as expanding our services to remove barriers towards employment and education. Our next is intergenerational. Again, we see young people age 14, and we may see their parent, relative, cousin, aunt, grandmother who are older on the adult side who've come into our office for services or job-seeking opportunities. So that's our model that we use, and we want to make sure that threshold is further developed as we provide services for the community. We're now open for questions.
Thank you for your presentation, and thank you for all you do, and thank you for joining us this evening. I particularly like your presentation because you give those direct examples of the impact of your programs, and they're always nice to see each year, so thank you for doing that. Turning to committee members for questions. Councilmember Keegan.
I feel like I'm the first one to go every time, so I apologize because for those of you who are listening in the community, I'm sure all of my fellow team members up here have the same questions that I do, so I don't want to sound like I studied harder than everybody else. Again, thank you so much for making the time to be here this evening. One of the other things I noticed in your department is that you've been working on workforce reentry with folks with substance abuse issues as well. Is that correct?
Yes.
So I just want to commend you because that is one of the greatest needs that we have here in the city right now. So thank you for that. I want to go to page 112. I just had a couple of questions. It looks like we are significantly reducing under the admin portion of the budget our contracted services. Do we know why? Is that related to actuals for 2025? They went from roughly 100,000 to 20,000.
for admin services,
Contracted services.
contract services. Pretty much that we put monies in the budget initially. As we go through our program throughout the year, fiscal year, we transfer monies from one line over into that contract services line.
Okay. And then if we move over to page 113, under the actual workforce services portion of the budget, I noted that your positions remain the same. It's 11 and 11, but we're increasing salaries by roughly 40,000-ish. Do we know what that's in relation to? Is that overall salary increases for the department?
Yeah, so those are salary increases for the department. We have many senior members on our staff, as well as, because we're a tri-county board, our competition are from other counties, and so we want to stay relevant to them so we can keep our good staff.
And then I'm also noted directly underneath that, you are planning to increase the line items for temporary help by roughly 160,000. Do we know what the reason or justification for that was?
Yeah, some of it has to do with minimum wage increases and our cohort programs, and others have to do with stipends through ITAs.
Okay. And then I wanted to ask some questions about our anticipated revenues. Our JTPA revenues, is that up for reauthorization? Is that guaranteed funding, or is that funding that may disappear on us?
I will say that we have noticed that nothing is guaranteed under this administration. But what I will say is that because of our previous year's reporting, that we anticipate that funding come because there's a lag in allocation based on a session or after in terms of the reporting. I anticipate we'll be fully funded, but I'll be honest, I really don't know at this time.
And is that the same for the CDBG funds?
Yeah.
The 700,000?
Those are also.
Do we know if that's being reauthorized, or was that already allocated?
No, CDBG is not under the WIOA authorization. It's under a different authorization, but it is federal funds, and we're in the same boat with that.
Okay. Those are all the questions that I have for this particular department. And again, thank you for making the time to be with us this evening.
Additional questions? Councilmember Farrell.
I just have a quick question. This might be a Gideon question. On page 112, the hospital and medical insurance, obviously insurance things are going up, but this one is doubling. And it's just, they're going up everywhere, but not that much. And I was just curious what that was. I know that it's a slightly different structure, the youth and workforce employees.
Yeah, I think, what happens, especially in some of these smaller units, is that we have individuals who switch health plans. Like, if you go from individual to family, that's a difference of $25,000, one way or the other. So, like, this could just be one of those individuals. I mean, when I build the budget, I have everyone's healthcare selections. So this is likely one individual switching their healthcare selection from individual to family.
Well, congratulations to them. Thank you.
Additional questions? Okay. All right. I think we are good for this evening. Thank you very much for joining us and staying late and everything you do for our city. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
All right. We are going to just transition to our last presentation for this evening, the one who's been waiting the longest. We have the Community Police Review Board presentation. Is everyone good to keep going? Good. Welcome. We're joined by our program director for the CPRB, Gareth Schaff. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me this evening. My name is Garrett Schaff. I'm the program director for the Community Police Review Board. At the start of this evening, we were joined by 3 board members. Unfortunately, their obligations, they were not able to stay. We were joined by our 2 newest board members, Warren Hamilton and Malik Dare, who've been appointed to the board by this body less than a month ago, or within the last month, and Victor Persons, who is a more senior, experienced member of the board. The mission of the Community Police Review Board is to improve communication between the Albany Police Department and the community, to increase police accountability with the public, and to create a complaint review process free from bias. This mission is codified by law through this body. The board is tasked with investigating and reviewing complaints of misconduct made against members of the police department, only within the city of Albany. The board encourages anybody who has a complaint related to a law enforcement interaction within this city to register a complaint. If it does not fall within our jurisdiction, we will assist in making sure it gets to the right law enforcement agency for investigation. The core functions of our agency are to review and to receive and review community complaints, to review the investigation and the quality of the work from the Office of Professional Standards within the police department, to conduct independent investigations related to complaints, as well as to provide review and input on agency or police department policies to both this body and the mayor's office. We also are working with the police department to establish a disciplinary matrix that is required by enabling legislation, as well as providing other recommendations to the community to improve law enforcement services within the city. Currently, our board consists of 7 members. We have 2 vacancies. Those 2 vacancies are mayoral appointee seats. We are currently getting ready to, in the coming few days, one of our members, our current interim chair, Ms. Antoinette Santos, her term ends. However, she is eligible for reappointment. She is appointed by this body, so this is something for the body to address. All of our other members' terms either have expired. Our Vice Chair, John Lewandowski, his term expired last year. However, he is a mayoral appointee. All of our other members' terms expire in the coming years, either next year or in 2027. As of October the 8th, the CPRB currently had 142 open complaints. 85 of those complaints were still with the police department while they were doing work on them. 57 of the complaints were with the board for review. 5 of those 142 complaints are independent investigations. We've received 62 new complaints as of the 8th of this month, this year. And the complaints, we've reviewed over 29 complaints. However, only 16 of those 29 complaints have been closed because there are some procedural issues on the back end that we're trying to address. So when we get up to speed and are able to review complaints in a more timely manner, we do not have to address it at that point. We're laying the foundation to be able to process the system faster. We've opened 1 independent investigation this year, and we closed 10 various complaints without review. Those would be complaints that are either outside of the jurisdiction of the board and the police department or were withdrawn by the complainant as allowed by law. If you notice, over the last 3 years, we've managed the number of complaints have stayed relatively level. We definitely saw an increase from 2020 to 2025. I attribute a lot of that increase to the more public notice of this board and the developments in 2020 and 2021 related to the murder of George Floyd. So police oversight became more known to the public, and so the board was being resourced more by the public in the community. During 2025, the highlights that I have for 2025 is they hired a program director. We established an office at 175 Central Avenue on the 5th floor. We also have submitted the 3 budgeted job descriptions for the board. Those would be 2 investigators and a confidential secretary. Those are currently pending with the Career Service Board here in the city. My understanding is they are waiting for some feedback and input and guidance from the state related to those job postings. We also have, as you can see, it's a very long list. We had a part-time employee. She was a seasonal hire. However, her term ended on the 14th of this month. So I am now the sole employee of the CPRB. Our goals in 2026 would be to hire and onboard all of the staff that has been budgeted. We are not requesting any additional positions for the 2026 fiscal year. We are keeping the same budget staff request as last year. We also want to ensure that we are complying with all of our obligations through open meetings laws and FOIL requests, so the public has the necessary access to, and transparency provided by the Community Police Review Board. We are in the process of finalizing the discipline matrix with the police department. It is currently with Chief Cox for his review and input. We are also in the process of establishing our mediation program. In 2025, we identified and retained 2 mediation providers. However, we are in the process of evaluating and identifying complaints that are best suited for mediation, because we want the mediation program to subsist long-term versus starting and stopping as it has historically done with the board. Our anticipated fiscal change for the year, as you can see, is roughly $173,000 more than it was last year. This is rooted solely in the fact that we do not have any staff on board. I cannot estimate when that staff will be hired. Given the nature of the work of the CPRB, there will have to be a period of overlap between our contracted investigations firm and our investigative staff. So our investigative staff is up to speed and learns the process, and we can seamlessly pass off and hand off open investigations without loss of information. The reductions that you see on the line items, specifically furniture and fixtures, office equipment, computer supplies, and supplies and materials, were solely to help offset that cost. The increase in contracted services is based off of actuals for 2025 when the budget proposal was submitted in July. It is still roughly the same amount of money. There have been some recent changes for our contract service providers. We had one recently resign and decided to no longer provide services. We also, related to our outside counsel, are in a period of transition with them as well. So the ultimate costs, the ultimate costs are unknown at this time. There's also an additional increase for contracted services related to office space lease. In speaking with former Commissioner Salmon related to the 2025 budget, she explained to me that the office space was being paid for through the general fund from the city out of the necessity to get the space secured in time for it to be moved into in January. However, the ultimate goal would be for that office space to be funded through the board's budget. In addition to that, you'll see the increase of roughly $22,000 on the fee and services line. That is related to our records management system, which was under budgeted for the 2025 fiscal year, and our memberships related to the professional organizations that we're required to be a member of, specifically NACOL. That's only a $500 expense. That's relatively minor. There are cost savings built into this budget. I do not anticipate needing to spend the full amount of the requested funds for contracted services in 2026. It's going to be dependent on when that staff is onboarded and how fast that staff can get up to speed with the work of the office. So therefore, a portion of the monitor investigators' costs, which are projected to be projected to be $210,000 to $220,000 for fiscal year 2026, will likely be significantly less. If we are able to get staff hired in the first quarter, I foresee being able to wind down the need for outside investigative services no later than the middle of Q3. However, that is all dependent on when staff is onboarded. I do note that there is a 23% increase in our request over last year's approved budget. However, as I said, that's related to, we're still somewhat in a transition period, similar to what we were dealing with last year's budget request. The benefits of our board to the community is it enhances police accountability and elevates the credibility of the police department. It also provides the community a voice in the police disciplinary process. A fully resourced board with all of the necessary staff will allow us to do this work far more efficiently and far more effectively. Our biggest hurdle right now is timeliness. Under the collective bargaining agreement with the police department, we have 12 months And when I say we, I mean both the police department and the board have 12 months to complete their work from the date the complaint comes into us until discipline has to be issued. If it's beyond that 12-month time frame, there is difficulties and most oftentimes a bar from being able to implement any discipline. So having in-house staff manage our investigations will allow us to do that process faster, as well as monitoring complaints faster. It will also help address the systemic policy and procedure failures of the police department, as well as help assist both the oversight board and the police department becoming a more modernized law enforcement agency and oversight system. And a well-staffed and resourced board will also help build public trust and mitigate risk to the city. A well-functioning police oversight system benefits both the community and law enforcement, therefore reducing the risks of litigation and lawsuits and claims related to law enforcement action. Communities that we served have called for sustained police oversight, transparency, and accountability. The city now has an opportunity to ensure that CPRB is an essential resource for the community and is sufficiently funded and resourced. In my short period of time being on the board, I feel that the board is in a very good situation in terms of structure to achieve its goals and assignments and expectations set by the council, the department, and the city as a whole. The only issue we're having now is just getting used to the board being fully operational within the city government structure. That's been the biggest challenge at this point, but we're making significant progress in that in the last couple of months. Any questions?
Start with a question because this is a fundamental difference that we have compared to other presentations. So just to be clear, if we go to our anticipated year-to-year change slide, if you could pull that back up. What is included in the proposed budget book released by the administration is $753,469 for the entirety of the Community Police Review Board. So just to be clear, what you are asking for is an addition to that budget via an amendment of $172,982.74 to result in a total budget for the CPRB of $926,451.74. Is that correct?
That is correct. However, as I stated, I do not anticipate needing actually to use all of those funds. Unfortunately, with the lack of staff and the unknown of when that staff will be on board and when we can cease to rely upon the cost-prohibitive outside service providers is why there is such an increase in the request. The projected funds for contracted services are based off of actuals at the time this was submitted. At the time of submission, we had 2 monitor providers. One provider was not budgeted for at all in 2025. His expenses up until the point of submission were roughly $4,000. I projected him to incur about a $10,000 expense in 2026 based off of his billing. The other provider was budgeted $100,000. At time of submission of this request, they had already expended all of their budgeted line item for the entire fiscal year. So they had already spent $103,000. Based off of that projection, they were on track to bill the city for $220,000 worth of services for the year. So that's why there's that increase. In addition to that, there's the $12,480 office space cost, as well as a $2,000 utility cost and a $1,600 cost related to providing cleaning services for our space. The utilities and the cleaning services are part and parcel of the lease. They're just billed independent of the lease. In addition to that, we had an outside counsel whose contract expired at the end of July, or in the middle of July. At the time of his contract expiration, he had submitted almost $74,000 worth of invoices. He was budgeted for all of 2025 for $75,000. So based off of those projected costs, I estimated if he had been retained or he was reselected to provide services in 2026, that would be roughly $150,000 worth of legal expenses. That is significantly higher than what it would cost to have an in-house lawyer hired as a staff employee of the board, which is something that I would encourage consideration of, because that is also available under the ordinance.
2 follow-up questions to that. Fundamentally, was this submitted prior to budget release, this request for higher funding?
Yes, it was.
Okay. And the second question to that is, with the projection of contracted services, an acknowledgement that all positions were not filled this year, that the council advocated for adding in our last budget cycle, do you anticipate some of those costs being offset by filling the positions that you said are now currently pending some feedback with HR?
Absolutely. So given my experience in this field, I estimate that once the investigative staff is onboarded and trained and oriented, it will be roughly, depending on their skill level, it will be between 4 and 6 months before we can wind down the investigative service contractors. That will allow, at this point in time, the service provider is the only provider that knows how the investigation system is working. I haven't had the opportunity to learn that. I'm trying to get the foundational level of the board set, but once we get the staff on board, it should take 4 to 6 months before we're able to wind down that contract. I do want to note that the current contract expires at the end of this year and is not eligible to be renewed, so a RFP will have to be issued to continue having this service provided by either our current service provider or another entity.
Can we please get a breakdown of the projections you have going into that 404,000 for contracted services? You mentioned some very quickly, utilities, clean costs, et cetera. But can we get a copy of that?
Certainly. I will give you a copy before I leave this evening. I have it right here.
Okay. Thank you so much. Additional questions from committee members? Councilmember Keegan.
Thank you again for making the time to meet with us this evening. And also, I want to acknowledge that we appreciate the board members who did come this evening in anticipation of being able to present the budget. First and foremost, I just want to clarify for the record that under the police department's contract, it's 12 months from the date of infraction. So if there's a delayed report, there's no lookbacks on that unless there's exigent circumstances that would allow for that.
Okay, and I apologize, I misspoke, in part because most of our complaints are almost contemporaneous to the infraction.
Correct. I just don't want anybody out there listening in the public thinking that if, 4 years goes by and they make a complaint, all of a sudden the clock starts, because that would not be the case. Has there been any discussion? I mean, we set a budget. That budget is relatively finite, and so there's decisions that have to be made around what you're going to invest in spending on and versus what you're not going to invest in spending on. Has there been any discussions with the board regarding those kind of budgetary controls within the fiscal year?
Shortly after I arrived, I started the process of hiring the staff because I wanted to get the staff onboarded as fast as possible to reduce our need for a larger budget for 2026. However, due to some internal issues within the board, that was delayed significantly until August. And now we're waiting on the Civil Service Board to do their work so we can progress. There have been conversations internally about the cost prohibitive nature of the way the board is currently functioning. However, some of that conversation has not been well received by some members of the board. Fortunately, I think by getting new membership on the board and some of the changes that have occurred in the last 2 or 3 weeks related to our service providers and our former outside counsel, some of that concern is going to be ameliorated over time. It's just going to take time for the new members to get on board and understand the concerns. I share your concerns related to the expenditures of the board. This fiscal year alone, we've already requested to transfer. We've requested on 3 separate occasions to transfer funds. Our first request was $15,000, our second request was $25,000, and our third request was $100,000. All of those transfers came from various lines solely to the contracted services line to cover the cost prohibitive service providers that we're currently working with.
And I understand that they're not opening up independent investigations into every single complaint, but the other piece is that once that money is gone, it's gone.
Correct.
So you have to pick and choose what you're going to invest in, and there has to be constant communication with the contractor about where they're at in the scope of that investigation and how they're going to close that investigation with the budget that they have. And that's where my concerns come from. It's sort of the same concerns over legal services. the decision to spend money on certain things versus the things that were prioritized for those legal services. Those are really incredible and important conversations that need to be had in order to manage cost controls so that they can proceed with the goals that we originally allocated those funds for.
And I agree, and I have had those conversations. Unfortunately, the receptiveness to some of those conversations is not there at this time, or has historically not been there. We are slowly moving in that direction. One of the things that I highlighted shortly after coming in was the vast majority of our investigations that are being handled, either monitored or investigated by the outside service firm, are beyond the 12-month time frame. So the question is what is the value of that expenditure related to the outcome or the influence that the board can have in the disciplinary process? I have encouraged the board repeatedly to work amongst itself and to collaborate with this body, the mayor's office, and the police department to try to figure out a system or a process to speed up or address the complaints that are already beyond that 12-month time frame. My understanding is OPS at one point had a very significant backlog that they have made significant strides in resolving. However, the board has not reached that yet. To give you an example, hold on, sorry, where's my other page? Give you an example, I pulled numbers this morning. Currently, as of today, there are currently 134 open complaints. Out of those 134 open complaints, the average age of those complaints is 18 months old. 70 of those complaints are past 12 months old with an average age of 30 months, and only 64 are less than 12 months old with an average age of 5.5 months. Out of those 134 complaints, 48 of them are sitting with the board pending action by the review board. That means both either the OPS work and or the monitor and independent investigation work is completed. The average age of those 48 complaints is 259 days in age. There are 3 complaints with a monitor. Those averaged at 77 days in age. OPS currently has 82 complaints sitting with them. 30 are past the 12 months with an average age of 32 months old, and 52 are less than 12 months with an average of 5 months old. That is indicative to me that OPS is speeding up the process. So we are working at the board to try to figure out how to speed up that process. When I arrived, the board membership was 7 members. A member passed away shortly after or shortly before my arrival, so that brought us down to 6. We had a resignation in the middle of the year that brought us down to 5. We are now back up to 7, so that helps with the reviews because we can spread the workload across the board more evenly. The work of the volunteer members of this board is very intensive. When they review a complaint, they are reviewing every aspect of that complaint and all of the evidence and all of the materials. Sometimes it can be hundreds of hours of body cam footage. Sometimes it can be documents and significant interviews. In addition to that, some of the delays that we have encountered have been related to the historic reluctance or the historic challenges the board has had in getting access to department records as well as cooperation from officers. One of the things that I am very optimistic about with the board being part of the city is some of those concerns will be able to be disposed of over time once everybody understands where the board falls within the government structure.
Thank you. My other question for you, and this is again with regard to the contracted services that we have for independent investigations, has there been any demonstration that the city requires, like have they found significant need for policy change, or has there been significant differentiation between the city's findings and the independent investigative findings in those cases?
In the complaints that have been reviewed this year, which have only started in July, the vast majority of the review has resulted in the board concurring with OPS's recommendations, whether that complaint was solely reviewed by the board, independently investigated, or monitored. Our independent investigators are for both monitoring and investigations. The instances in which there is a disagreement, it is not a fundamental change in findings. So our findings are not going from a sustained finding to an exonerated finding or vice versa. They're going from sustained to not sustained, or not sustained to sustained, or not sustained to exonerated. That indicates to me that the vast majority of the complaints that we are being reviewed are better suited for in-house work, as well as potentially fewer instances of needing to independently investigate and greater instances of policy review to make policy recommendations to improve the department over time.
And then just one sort of additional question about processes, because I know one of the major divergent concerns has been around the subpoenas, the cooperation of officers. In my opinion, there are some structural issues contained in local law J that the city has some valid reasons to not comply with that, which is one of the reasons why we recommend that this go to court, so that a judge could issue a decision that is clear to the city and clear to the CPRB as to where that authority lies. But one of my hopes in bringing on our own investigators is that we might be able to resolve that concern, not perhaps in the way that the board envisions seeing it, but in a way that would allow for both the public and the board to feel very comfortable that the information needed and the ability to question officers was sort of resolved. And has there been any discussions with the department about having an established MOU once those investigators come on that would allow them to participate in OPS questioning?
At this time, no. I can tell you that we had our outside investigations firm conducted 3 subpoenaed interviews. Those 3 officers answered basic demographic questions, but for otherwise invoked their right to remain silent. The board sent a request to the chief to issue discipline, and the response was he believed that the officers complied with the subpoena, the law, and department policy. In response to receiving that, I recommended to board membership that they work with this body and the police department to potentially revise policy to make it clear that cooperation with the board is required as a condition of employment, and to potentially work with this body to amend the local law to establish a clear obligation for any city official, regardless of their role, and any city department to cooperate with the investigations portion, the investigative authority of the board. This recommendation was based off of understanding police oversight as an industry, and that it is common practice for there to be some form of codification, whether that is in department policy or local law, mandating cooperation for administrative investigations for oversight purposes. And by the benefit of the board now being part of the city, I think it's easier for us to get there.
Correct. However, the current departmental contract really only requires them to cooperate with OPS as part of their collective bargaining agreement. That's why one of my recommendations would be to try and develop an MOU that would allow for our investigators to tag team with OPS on those interviews, because that would theoretically sort of fix the problem. I mean, we can always go back and consider changes to the legislation that would imply garrity rights throughout, because that language doesn't currently exist in local law J.
Right, and my understanding is that has been the garrity rights issue has been the biggest hurdle to getting the cooperation from the union and the officers in actual interviews. So I definitely believe an MOU is a strategy to get there, but I think that's like a bridge in my recommendation. That would be a bridge to get from where we are to where we ultimately want to be. Unfortunately, since I don't have investigative staff, I haven't had the opportunity to start working on that. I've been addressing other systemic issues within the operations of the board at this time.
All right, well, thank you. Those are all the questions that I had.
Additional questions? Councilmember Farrell?
Thank you so much, and very much appreciate this presentation and all the work that you're doing, and please extend our gratitude to the members that did come. It's, you know, they're basically, for all intents and purposes, volunteers, slight pay, but to come to an additional meeting, even for a little, I mean, and somewhere for a while, it's incredibly kind of them and shows a lot of dedication, so please extend that.
I definitely will.
One of my questions is, so as we're looking at this upcoming budget year, we do have some issues that we're, looking at in terms of impact on our constituency. And one of them is obviously a 3% tax increase, which is larger than it has been for quite some time, thanks in part to a lot of the work that Gideon has done. And also doubling of the trash fees. So it is something, as we look at our budget and what we're paying out, there's a lot of concerns, I would say, that we're all hearing from our constituency. So I know some of my constituents would love us to cut the budget so that those things were not as dramatically impacting them. So any raises are very difficult to do at this stage. I am curious if it's something that, as you were looking at that, because you're looking at contracted services versus filling some of these employees, which I do understand that you are working on the RFPs for I believe that we're in process where you're actually close to where you can actually put out different like, in other words, you will be able to actually begin the hiring process soon.
Yes, as soon as the job postings come back from the Civil Service Commission, we will post and we will recruit, interview, and hire as fast as humanly possible.
So it is, it's something, but to your point, who knows how long that's going to take? Who knows who's going to be applying? We certainly don't want to just hire an investigator that has no experience because it was the only person that applied. And hopefully that will not be the case, but again, one never knows, and we certainly don't want the CPRB to be without investigation powers. I'm curious if it's something that will all of these full amounts be actually needed. As we're looking at, again, any increase right now is difficult for us to do, especially because I know a lot of our constituents would like cuts throughout the budget. So I guess my request to you would be to be able to look at that number and see if there is any wiggle room, anything like that. Again, we certainly want to make sure that the CPRB has the tools needed, and we very much appreciate you navigating through this complicated process, and the whole board, of bringing CPRB into the city. It certainly has had some bumps, but there's a lot of good people involved with a lot of dedication to the city. But so I understand the reason why we have not hired yet, and I look so forward to the time that we just have an employee versus all of these high-paid contracted services. But we're not there yet. It's just something that it's just unclear if that's something that we could actually do. So that's my request, would be to be able to really look through and say what numbers we have some wiggle room with, where we can look to, things like that.
So I do think there's one expenditure where we could pick up some significant savings, possibly half of the value, and that would be, instead of proceeding with an independent outside counsel that is a contracted provider, that the board and in this body work towards potentially hiring an in-house attorney for the board. That I could not foresee an in-house attorney costing $150,000 a year, based off of similar positions within the city structure already. So that would be a significant savings. In terms of the cost of outside service providers, it's budgeted at $230,000 projected for 2026. However, as I said before, I do not foresee that needing to be fully expended. Ideally, if we can get people onboarded in January or February, we can cut that expense by almost half, because it would be June or July before we could wind down the service provisions. However, that's something I can't predict, and understanding also that the budgeting issues that we have encountered for 2025 and the needs to transfer funds from salary lines to contracted services, I wanted to avoid the need for that as well in 2026. However, you are correct, there is room for reduction within the contracted services line. I just am not currently in a position to be able to identify exactly when those savings would come to fruition.
Understood. Thank you very much.
Councilmember Bellerin.
Thank you, Cheryl. So this is a tough budget,
Yes.
as everybody knows. And again, I want to thank you for taking your time to be with us today, and I want to thank the board members that were able to join us earlier today, and those who weren't, for their service to the board and all the time and investment they've brought to this board. So, as I started, this is a tough budget. 2026 is going to be the easiest budget we're going to have in the next 5 years. And I've said this before, and I'm going to say it again. Everybody hold on, because it's going to get tough. With the closure of the landfill and the ARPA funds gone, and now potential federal funds being taken away. It is going to be a bumpy ride. So it is a time where we need to maximize the resources we have so we do not put ourselves in a more vulnerable situation. So I'm looking at the numbers in front of me, and I'm looking at 61% of the salaries not planned to be spent, or we do not have staff aligned right now in those jobs. You started this by saying you have one person in staff. So looking at your salary and taking it away from the salary, that means 61% of the salary line is vacant. It's about $180,000 right there. Then you have to connect that with the benefits. The benefits is $130,000. You take 61% of that, that's another $80,000. So I am looking at roughly $260,000 right now that is open within your budget to work with. And I say that because this body has and will continue to advocate for more funding for this board. We have gone to bat for this board. We have changed budget lines and cut furniture lines and cut every line we are legally able to do so to find more funding for this board. We've given Chairwoman Frederick and Gideon more gray hairs to find funding for this board. So I say that because I want to make sure the public knows that when I am asking for some consideration for the fact that we are in a very difficult bind this year, and when I'm seeing that we have funding that we do not, if we had everyone staffed, and then okay, well, where can we work some numbers? But within your own budget, I'm seeing $260,000 that we don't have staff, and that's between salaries and benefits. So I'm going to be honest, this is going to be a very difficult year for any organization to come looking for additional funds. And I've said it before, I've said it to the board members as well. It's going to get tougher. So I hope we can figure this out. There's a lot that needs to get figured out, and I look forward to working with everybody to try to figure it out. But this is a tough budget. And I guess I'm going to ask for a very clear answer. Is there a timeline? Do you see us filling these positions in the next 6 months? So then you can use that vacancy to offset the other expenses that you have and actually come up with a more realistic number that we can have a conversation about. Because when I'm looking at $260,000 that we don't have a timeline of when we're going to fill these positions, and I'm being asked for an additional $173,000, and we can just cutting that in half is $230,000. If we say we'll be fully employed, fully staffed in 6 months, okay. Well, then we're looking at a much smaller number, much smaller gap we need to find. So do you have a timeline of when you think we'll be fully funded?
So I first want to say that there are, as I've mentioned several times, there are some unknowns in this process. The hiring process within the city is not independent. I'm not solely in control of it. No individual department is able to determine how fast that process goes. So we are currently waiting on the approval to advertise and post those jobs. That approval is pending. You are correct. We are asking for a significant increase. I will tell you that if staff would have been if staff was able to have been hired in 2025 as estimated during the transition, there would not have been a need to request an increase in the budget at all. The request for this budget is solely related to the outside service providers and what they were spending in 2025 and going into 2026 knowing we have no staff. My goal is to have staff onboarded as fast as I possibly can within the system that exists. Unfortunately, we are at a holding pattern right now where we're waiting on the Civil Service Commission to do their work. Once their work is completed, I have had assurances from the city clerk that we will quickly advertise those positions, recruit those positions, and bring them before this body for you to make selections and hiring decisions for. I cannot provide you a time frame, unfortunately. The clerk may be able to provide some more insight on that.
So to try to answer that question, the program director and we did not get approval to even send the job descriptions to the Civil Service Commission until August, mid-August. With that said, the commission reviewed the descriptions after they were amended by the board. There was some questions that the commission had, and we're in a process of working through those questions to ensure that the job descriptions in line with the city of Albany as well as the state in regards to the investigators. Because there's certain language in the job descriptions that needs to align, and with the revision that the board provided, it did not do that. The job descriptions have been with the Civil Service Commission since September 12th. They came back to me with some revisions. We're in a process, again, still trying to work through those revisions. Unfortunately, the commission has had to cancel and reschedule meetings. We're hopeful that they could get the job descriptions approved sometime early November, but it's not a guarantee. As soon as those job postings are approved, they will immediately be posted. So we're hopeful that within the next 6 months, we will have interviews started, as well as either the investigators identified on who the board wants to bring on to hire. So we're hopeful that within that 6 months that we can, but it's not a guarantee.
And if I can add to that, one of the things that being new to this job market, one of the things I am not sure of is if the salary ranges on these 3 job postings will attract the talent and the skills necessary to provide the services that we're looking for the board. Only time will tell with that.
Can I get a follow-up? Okay, thank you, sure. Okay, so we're looking at potentially 6 months to be able to get it, and I have a question. Have the revived job postings, have they been reviewed by the board as well?
So, sorry.
I'm sorry.
When I arrived in May, there were already, those 3 job postings had already been reviewed and approved by the board. So I made a couple minor adjustments related to the salary ranges to ensure that it reflected the difference between the senior investigator and the investigator, and I submitted those to the clerk for approval. Upon membership learning of this, I was instructed to rescind those documents so they could re-review them and re-approve them, and that took them from May until August. As soon as they were approved, I submitted them to the clerk.
Okay, so, and now there's been changes by the state, correct?
At that point, the Civil Service Commission came back and questioned the revisions that the board made, which halted the posting and the approval process by the Civil Service Commission. With that, this is why we're still pending.
In the process, okay.
Yeah, in that process. Yeah.
So I guess my request and my ask is that whenever we get the final revision from the state, that we also have the board take a look at it, so that we don't find ourselves in a situation where the board doesn't feel that they were kept in the loop in the process or may not agree with it all. I'd rather have everybody green lighted so that when we actually start trying to hire, we can actually have everybody on board with this is what we all agreed on and not have conflicts if they can be avoided. So, that's going to be my ask. I don't know who I'm making that ask to.
Yes, absolutely. We would absolutely share it with the board, but I just want to go on record, we don't want there to be a further delay in getting those job postings posted. So when we do send it out, I would just recommend that we put a deadline on when the board should respond with approval or
Absolutely, and I have been communicating to the board throughout this entire process related to the job postings that some of their asks may not be able to be granted based off of the structure of civil service and how that process works. So they are aware of that, but from the very beginning, the plan was when the job postings were approved, we would show them the final version, let them ask any questions about those revisions. If those revisions were rooted in requirements by the civil service laws and expectations, that's what they were rooted in, and then we would go ahead of posting and identifying.
Okay, so is it fair to say that for the first 6 months of 2026, we will not be fully staffed? Is that fair to say?
No.
Okay, so give me a date that you think will be fully staffed.
I cannot give you a date that we will be fully staffed because at this point in time, we cannot even post job descriptions. If it was solely within our power, I would hope to have staff on board no later than the beginning of April. But we don't even know when we're going to be able to start advertising for hiring.
Well, I think it's safe to say that we're probably not going to spend the full $260,000 that is split between the salaries and the benefits. So there is some savings within your already existing proposed budget to be able to make some transfers to cover some of the additional expenses. It would be helpful to, I think, this committee, at least to myself, I'll speak for myself, to have better numbers, because if you're asking for us to advocate for additional dollars, it'll be helpful to have a better understanding of when you're going to spend what's already in front of us, versus not really having a set number. And I think that's the hardest part, not having a real set number. When you have, I'm looking at $260,000 because, again, I added your $295 on your salaries and your $131,000 on your benefits. Right now, you're only using 61% of the salaries, so that means you're only using 61% of the benefits. So that's why I came up with my 260, just so that people know where my numbers are coming from. So that's why it's hard to say, let's advocate for more funding when there's 260 already in your budget that we are currently not spending. But I'm going to leave it there because I know there's other questions and I don't want to belittle the continue the issue.
I don't disagree with your assessment, and crafting this budget proposal was a challenge because of the exact same things you just identified. And unfortunately, the unknowns are what is resulting in the budget request. But as I stated before, if staff is onboarded, there will be at least a 4 to 6 month overlap between the service providers and staff once staff is hired. So even if we could hire staff January 1, we would still need to pay contractors for about 6 months. So the increase is solely related to the unknown of when staff will be there and how long it will take to get staff trained to take over the contracted service provider lines. So that's the struggle. If the staff was already in place and was being trained now, our budget request would be very similar to what it was in 2025 for what you authorized the board. I do believe that this board can function within the 1% budget requirement within the legislation, as that is the industry standard for police oversight, and far larger oversight organizations are able to function within that 1% budget. And once we have staff in place, we will be able to do so as well.
Thank you. Additional questions? Councilmember Keegan?
I think it's important for anybody who's listening, members of the public, to understand the interplay that just occurred around the title issue. In the state of New York, everybody has to align with a civil service title. There are a multitude of titles, and anybody can go and look these up. If you go to civil service and you ask for a list of titles, there is an alphabetical search component, and you can pull up all the investigator titles that New York State has. But we have to stay within the parameters of that title. The CPRB cannot grossly dictate the city or any city employee outside the scope of the existing titles. So that's likely where those issues are coming into play. And just also for folks who are listening, if you look at the title series, it'll also provide, for the most part, some are non-salaried, so you can't look at the grade level. But by and large, if you look at the civil service titles, they start at a grade 14 and run through a grade 25. It will stay, for purposes of when you're comparing Albany to the state has a very hard time recruiting at the grade 14 level. The majority of their investigative titles are grade 18 through 25. However, the salary scope, at least for fiscal year 2025, is on par with the anticipated salary schedule that went into effect for grade 18 and grade 23 folks for fiscal year 2025-2026. When new contracts are negotiated, we may have to reconsider that salary scale, because those are going to increase along those lines. But I just wanted to provide that point of information for those listening, for the public, because it can be a little confusing. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilmember Hoey.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Garrett, and thank you, Gideon. We talked about the 1%. Gideon, what is 1% of the total police budget? And does that include stuff like animal control and other things that fall under the police department?
Let's see. The base police department budget, where the police officers are, is $66.4 million. That number does not include animal control and E911, as those units have no police officers.
Okay. Does animal control is not, I could have sworn they carry guns. They don't carry guns?
No.
Okay. All right. And then my other question, and where do we see the rent? I think somebody said that there was rent being paid in the new location.
So in 2025, the rent is coming out of the general fund for the city. It's not coming out of the CPRB's budget. In speaking to former Commissioner Solomon, she advised that that was a function or a result of a necessity of speed to ensure that there was office space secured in time for the board to have space come January 1 of this year. The actual cost of the office space rent will be $12,480 for 2026, and that is one of the increases to the contracted services line.
So that's in contracted services?
Yes, sir.
Now, we're here in the Common Council, and I went through the budget book. I don't see, do we pay for space in City Hall, Kitty?
No, the council is not charged by DGS for space, no.
And so why are we charged, does the police department charge for space?
Yes.
Okay, I didn't know that. That's interesting.
And if I may, just to clarify,
Sure.
the facility that the CPRB is housed in is not a city facility. It is an independent, privately owned facility that the city rents space out of for the CPRB, Parks and the Recreation Department, Youth Services, and I believe there may be one other city entity in there. There are also some state entities in that building.
Gideon, is there any chance with the St. Rose property that we might be able to get space where we don't have to pay for it to a private individual?
I mean, we can certainly contact the county. They all obviously own all of those properties, and see if they would be willing to do that for us, yeah.
Okay. And there was some talk about the old All Saints is closed down, as we know. There was some talk about moving, the city buying that property and moving training into there where it would be a a building, would there be space if we were to do something like that?
You know, that's extremely speculative, given that, you know, we don't own the property or anything like that. I haven't gone and seen it, and honestly, I don't know how appropriate it would be for the CPRB's offices to be in a police facility.
No, you're right. I'm not thinking. Sorry. Thank you. The contracted services, Garrett, I had heard, and I don't know how true it is, that we had some of our investigators coming up by train from New York City, and it's 3 hours each way, and they were charging us by the hour to travel up. Do you know anything about that? Or?
That is correct. So our service provider our primary service provider for investigation services is T&M USA LLC, and they are housed in New York City. When they travel, when they need to interview somebody or do in-person presence here in the city of Albany, they must commute. They have billed the city travel time versus mileage or something along those lines, plus expenses related to housing for the night and food for the evening. When they came, I believe it was in August, they brought 3 investigators. Each one of them charged us $200 an hour per investigator to conduct 3 interviews. They came up the night before, traveled 3 hours, so that was $600 per person for that 3 hours worth of travel, or $200 an hour, $600 an hour of travel for all 3 of them. They spent the night, they came and did 3 interviews in about 3.5 or 4 hours, and then went home. So the vast majority of the expense for those interviews was their travel, not the actual work related to the interview.
Now, did they also get paid for staying in the hotel overnight besides the cost of the hotel?
The invoice that we received was for the cost of the hotel, but not for hourly rates for staying within the hotel.
Now, we're going to be redoing that contract?
Correct. There is a need to issue a new RFP. So when we issue the new RFP, I have already discussed some ideas with the clerk, and I will be bringing those to the Corporation Counsel's office, and I will definitely involve this body in those conversations as well as board membership on how to curtail some of those expense costs. The predominant one would be, instead of paying an hour for hour travel time, we provide a reimbursement of mileage as if the city would provide for an employee who needed to travel somewhere related to city work. If I had to go to a training in Buffalo, I'm not getting paid my hourly rate to drive to Buffalo. I'm going to get paid the mileage, and it's typically, you know, I don't know, probably, what, 25 cents a mile?
It's probably about 68 cents.
Okay, so 68, it's been a while since I've had to bill for mileage, sorry. But 68 cents a mile would be far less than what my hourly rate would be to make that travel.
But I'm thinking that the job is here. I wouldn't give them the travel time. I mean, do you think we wouldn't be able to get an investigator? It just doesn't sound right to me. I mean, if we hire somebody, we're not, and they live in New York City, we're not going to pay for them to come up, you know, to work up here.
So the advantage that we have with this new RFP is the past RFP was managed, and the contract was ultimately created and crafted by the law school and the board. We have this council, this body, the city itself will have more control over and more say and input into the RFP process and the ultimate contract. I don't know that we could say we're not going to pay you to come here to do the work. I do agree that having a local firm, if we need to have an outside service provider, is better than a firm located in New York City. But from a practical standpoint, as I said earlier, T&M currently is the only firm that we have that has been doing both monitoring work and independent investigations. So we would need to rely upon them in some form or fashion to extract the knowledge that they have gained over the last 5 years of doing this work.
Okay. Yeah, it's just a shame because I know I hire people all the time to do work at the university, and this is what it is. I did hire somebody from Queens. That was his expense to pay for the hotel, pay for the mileage. You're contracted to do the work, not. But again, I don't want to micromanage how you do it. So that's important. But I think we could save some money there, you know, per Alfredo's point that, you know, we got to cut back. Also want to talk about the training and conferences. We got allocated $26,000. yeah, I know we had a member go, but, and then the member stepped down, it becomes expensive. I mean, could we cut back maybe some on that? You know, I don't know how important, I know the NACO group is important, but I know we have a group in the Northeast. Instead of having to go to San Francisco or Chicago or wherever, could we cut back a little bit on that and you know, try to save a little bit? Every little bit we save is a good thing.
I fundamentally agree with you. NACO, first of all, is a national organization. They also have regional conferences. We sent one of our members, the same member, to 2 regional conferences this year. However, the law governing the board requires 1 board member to attend the annual conference. No member is attending the conference this year. The conference is, I think, next week, because there was nobody had availability to go. In terms of the expenses related to the training, we will have to, at some point in time, identify providers to assist in developing that training, because there is a requirement within the law for continued education training for both membership and staff. Some of that may be able to be supplemented from existing units within the city structure, such as the Corporation Counsel's Office or the police department, to provide some of that more practical training or legal type training. I have discovered that NACO offers training in 2 ways. The conferences typically aren't a lot of training. It is more conversation and trade conference and talking about challenges within the space of civilian oversight. They offer a lot of in-person training and web-based training.
Okay.
That web-based training, for whatever reason, if you attend it live, there is a fee. But if you wait 2 or 3 weeks or a month, they post it on their website for free.
Okay.
So I have encouraged membership to sign up to the NACO website, which is no cost, for them to be able to access that training. I also came to this position with significant amounts of training that I had developed in my prior position that I will hopefully be able to tailor to the board over time. I just haven't had the opportunity to work on that. So over time, yes, I do not foresee the $26,000 being needed, but if for whatever reason all 9 board members wanted to go to the annual conference at NACO, it's or the least expensive cost is just under $600 per person.
Okay.
And then there's an annual cost for the board itself to have a membership in NACO, which grants us the access to that free training, and that's $500 a year. And the members that we have sent to training, their reimbursement, their travel costs, their hotels and food are coming out of the training and conference services line. So that can also be expensive depending on where they're traveling to and what city they're in.
Now, can you just, I lost what legislation says they have to do 1 training a year? Is that city or is that state?
If you look at the city legislation that enables the board, there's a requirement that 1 board member attend the annual conference of NACO.
Okay.
There's also a requirement for continued education that progresses, and in the way I read it, would progress and build upon itself over time. So you wouldn't get the same training every time. The training would build on itself over time. That is required both for staff and for board membership to ensure that we are all fully aware of developments within the law enforcement space and as law enforcement changes, because it is an ever-changing space. Laws change on a regular basis. Every time a judge issues a court order, we could have a law change that we need to be aware of and be able to adjust to.
Yeah, and I agree. I mean, training is important. We want to make sure people are well educated. What part of that training, is it also going to the Police Citizen Academy, or is that something separate?
The cost of attending the Police Citizens Academy is not covered in this training and conferences. However, that requirement is for board members and mediation providers. So it is possible that our mediation providers who have not gone through that training yet will need to go through that training, and the cost of their attendance can either come from their contracted services line or potentially from the training and conferences line.
How much does APD charge us for that?
The APD does not charge us for the program, but if we send the contracted mediator, we can't, I don't know that we can ask.
I understand, yes.
We can ask them to attend that program for free because it's several weeks long, right?
Yeah.
So we would have to compensate them at some rate, and their hourly rate currently is $200 an hour.
Okay, great. And then the last thing, I'm sorry to tie everybody up, but there was a few things. The stipends for our board members, we have allocated $27,000. It's a $3,000 a year stipend per member of the board, but we're down two members, so that's $6,000. And the mayor hasn't appointed anybody in the last 2 or 3 years. So, I mean, that's a little bit of savings there. I don't think we get to keep getting, do we get to keep the money from like last year that was allocated for that, or is this starts out new? Does it roll over, I guess, is what I'm asking.
No, general fund appropriations do not roll over in that manner, no.
Okay, thank you.
And in regards to the stipends, it's my hope that whomever wins and becomes mayor-elect in the next month will seek to fill those vacancies quickly as soon as they are in office. So I think we need to make sure we have that funding available for the entire fiscal year.
Because people are doing extra work covering for those 2 people that aren't there. And I brought this up at the last meeting, council meeting, that it's just not fair. It's not fair that this is just, we're making, 6, 7 people do the work of 9, and it's just not right. We should be giving them the extra money for doing that extra work. Thank you all for letting me ask those questions.
Thank you, Councilmember Hoey. Any additional questions? Councilmember Ballerin.
Thank you, and this will be a quick one. When is the RFP for investigators going to be going out?
So I will be starting that process tomorrow for both the investigators and the outside counsel. The investigations RFP has been on the radar for quite some time. Membership has been quasi-responsive to that need, but recent developments related to our outside counsel necessitates that process starting immediately. So I'm taking advantage and starting that process on both at the same time. And membership is aware of that. I informed them of that, and they have raised no objections to starting that process.
Okay. I guess my question is, when will it be on their agenda to approve it? How long do you think before it'll be on a board's agenda to get that approved? After it's been also reviewed by our clerk and make sure that it meets all of our city requirements.
So I will be talking to the Corporation Counsel's office tomorrow about starting drafting the RFPs. Fortunately, we have already passed RFPs that can provide a template for what we need. As soon as they are ready to go, I'm giving them to board membership to get them on agenda and get them approved. I'm trying to get the RFP process done as fast as possible, but it is just that. It is a process. There are multiple layers of review, both from the Corporation Counsel's office, my desk, board membership, this body. There are a lot of people that are involved in our RFPs.
I like timelines, I like deadlines. Can we say within the next 3 to 6 months that can be achieved?
We can say that, but I can't promise that one way or another, unfortunately, sir. I'm sorry. There is an unknown about how long this process is going to take. I can speak historically about the job descriptions, for example. I started in the second week of May. I submitted them that same week. They were rescinded by board membership, and they did not get approved for submission for a further 3 months.
Okay, well, I hope we can get this done a little bit quicker, and hopefully we can get everyone on board, because I think we need an RFP that is more beneficial economically for the city and for the board and for the work that they're trying to do. So hopefully we can get that done ASAP. Thank you.
And I agree with you, sir, and that is my objective, to get it done as fast as possible.
Okay. Not looking like we have any additional comments. Mr. Sheff, thank you very much for your time this evening. I know also you stayed very late to go through this process, and you answered a lot of our questions with a lot of detail, so appreciate that very much. That being said, just should have started with this, but do want to thank the board and thank you for your efforts. This is a unique part of our city that is very much needed, and it's also one of the more harder positions. A lot of the board, as fellow Councilmember Farrell said, is volunteer-based, right? A small stipend, but a lot of that work is done purely volunteer, and it's difficult work to do. So I thank you all for your commitment and your time this evening.
Thank you very much.
Okay, with that, do I have a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting? Motion from Councilmember Keegan, second from Councilmember Farrell. All those in favor? Aye. Thank you, everyone. Have a great evening.